Okay, everyone. Let's get started here. Can you hear me, everyone? Good evening. How y'all doing? All right, ladies and gentlemen, I have got a live stream for you that, if I do say so myself, is going to be a doozy. I have been scouring French Twitter, Spanish Twitter, English Twitter. I've been reading mainstream media from France, from Britain, from Spain, gathering details, screenshots, eyewitness accounts about everything that happened on Saturday in Paris during the Champions League final. For those of you who might not know what is the Champions League final, I think it's gotten to the point now where it's big enough that even Americans know what it is. But just in case there's some who aren't familiar with it, it's basically a really important international football or soccer tournament held every year between like the elite football clubs of Europe. And every year the final is held in a neutral country, a neutral city, and then the two finalists compete. This year, the final was going to be held in St. Petersburg, but because Russia is now, big bad Russia, evil Putin, it was taken, the final was taken from St. Petersburg, and in a very poignant act, it was moved to Paris. It was moved to multicultural Paris, and in fact, it was moved to the Stade de France, which is located in the banlieue, the sort of outskirts, the suburb of Saint Denis, and which has basically become a no-go zone. So, in a very poignant irony, the final was taken from a safe city, more or less, and moved to the holier than thou West France, and it was taken to Paris, where all hell broke loose both before and after the match. So you guys are saying that you can't hear me. Is everyone hear me? Is everyone okay here? One person says you are not heard. Let me know if you can hear me in the chat, everyone. I can hear you fine. I can hear you fine on Odyssey. Perfect. How's everyone going on Odyssey? How's everyone doing? Good. I can hear you. Okay. So the one person who said you can't hear me, I think it might be on your end. Now, it's true that this stream might be a little bit wobbly because I have so much to show you guys. I have so many screenshots. I have so many videos. And I've never shared screenshots and videos on a live stream. So it's just been me talking to a guest. So I don't know if everything is going to go smoothly. We're going to try. I've been trying to practice. So, okay. So I've got the scenarios is set, right? So on Saturday, last Saturday, it's the final of a very important football tournament. Some would say it's the most important match of the year. It has certainly surpassed some European football leagues, domestic leagues in importance. Some might even say that the quality is better than even at the World Cup, the quality of play, because these are the elite clubs, these are the elite players. And so most of the world's eye was fixed on Paris for this match. And there was a 36-minute delay from the scheduled kickoff. It was supposed to kick off at 9 p.m. France time, ended up kicking off 36 minutes late. Now, as people were watching on televisions, the ticker at the bottom was saying there's been a delay because of bottlenecks at the gates. People are having a problem scanning their QR codes. There's been a dysfunction with the the ability to scan your QR digital ticket code. That is not what happened. So we're going to go step by step through everything that's happened here. We're going to talk about the reaction of state, the French state, mainstream media outlets, and also some people who were there, or some people who are opining, who refuse to open their eyes and admit that there's a problem. So just let me get some of the media I have stored up here. It should be already ready to go. What do I want to start with? There's just so much. Well, let's start with some scenes of what took place outside the stadium. So we'll start with this here. Okay, so I'm going to share this. This is what you're going to see here are some of France's lovely diverse population, the ones who pay our pensions, you know, the ones who have come to Europe to save us and from our population decline and pay our pensions. And they are gathering up outside the gates of the stadium, and they're acting a bit, well, I'll show you here. So let me just share this. Okay.
Pourquoi tu filmes toi? Pourquoi tu filmes? Moi, filme pas ma tête, monsieur, il y a pas un filme pas ma tête. Moi, je vais te donner ton téléphone. Pourquoi tu filmes toi? Ça me tue, tu vas. Ça me tue, vas. T'es dans le ça va t'enculer, mon pote.
Okay, could you all see that? Okay, could you all see and hear that? Just let me know if you can all, if that was, you could all see and hear the video of that that audio and video that I just played. If everything is good to go, that's how we're going to keep doing it. Perfect, excellent. Okay, so this is what's happening outside the stadium. Saint-Denis is a no-go zone. It's a banlieue, it's a suburb. And now for like, especially Americans, when you guys hear the word suburbs, you might think of nice areas. In Europe, it's a bit reversed. And in particular in France and in European cities, it's a bit reversed. The outskirts, the suburbs, are actually usually not the best places. And I guess the banlieue is French for outskirts or suburbs. It's called Saint-Denis, and it's become a no-go zone. And this isn't anything new. We're going to get to some of this later about how people are talking about this is something that's just happened recently. France and Paris in particular, and France's big cities, have been having these problems for decades, since the 90s. You know, I would go back as far as the 90s. And so the Liverpool supporters, the two teams that played, by the way, were Real Madrid from Spain, obviously, and Liverpool from England. Two very big clubs, big following. And the fans, especially those of Liverpool, but I think it was actually quite a mix of, an even mix of Spanish fans and English fans. They had to walk through Saint-Denis. They had to walk through this no-go zone with hardly any protection. I've read reports that said there were no barriers put up. There was no like police presence. There was nothing really to protect the fans that had to pretty much make it on their own to the stadium via the streets of this no-go zone. Okay, so that's the first problem. And that what I just showed you in that video is the kind of people they're having to deal with as they get there. So now I'm going to show you some more videos. Just let me get rid of the one that I showed you here, and I'm going to find some other ones now of just exactly what was going. We're going to try and find the context, put a little context to this, because some of them are really short. So we're gonna try and imagine what the situation might be like. Okay, so here I got another one for you. Just 1 second here. Okay. All right, so here, right, so in this video, as you can see, that's not exactly Liverpool Englishmen or Madrid fans storming that fence there. And this is important to note because French media and the French government, and then Spanish media is just parroting what they're saying, and British media as well, are all saying that this was the fault of the fans, especially the fault of the traveling English fans. They are trying to blame English fans for causing all this chaos and the 36-minute delay, and even the chaos after the match, which I think is which even surpasses the chaos of before the match. So here, let's look at another video of what happened outside the stadium prior to kickoff. I believe it's this one. I've got so much stuff, guys. It's unbelievable how much, little by little, how much is filtering out. It's being shared on social media. And despite so many eyewitness videos, despite so many videos filmed on a phone, despite so many eyewitness accounts, talking to pretty mainstream newspapers, outlets, despite all that, the French government and the mainstream, or even like the sort of like the left-wing press, is trying to run with this narrative that it was all the fault of the fans, it was all the fault of the traveling supporters. I'll show you even later, they're trying to blame Jurgen Klopp, the manager of Liverpool, because he encouraged Liverpool supporters to travel to Paris like any manager would do, trying to get the fans to come and support the team. So they're trying to blame him for instigating the Liverpool fans to come to Paris. Okay, so here's another video of what happened outside the stadium. Okay, and again, look at the demography. Look at the demography of the people running in, and look how the police don't do anything. They don't do anything. They're there, but they don't do anything. It's ridiculous. Now, like I said, that's just a short clip. Those could be really excited fans running in to get to their seats because they're so excited, but I doubt it, because we can see that there's police with batons and riot gear, and they're chasing those fans. And because we know what happened, we know that there was chaos, we know there was violence, and it wasn't just chaos and violence. We're talking about muggings, beatings, molesting women and girls. This wasn't just a mass press of fans, and it got a bit too chaotic, and people were panicking in the press of humanity. Not at all. And it's worth pointing out that football has this reputation, especially in bygone years, that the fans, the hooligans, right? Everyone knows that term, are violent. There's this violent element of hooliganism in football. And actually, it used to be pretty bad. And talking about Liverpool fans and English fans, they've had the worst reputation. And in fact, English clubs were banned from European competition for like 5 years because of Liverpool fans in 1985, I think, caused like this huge tragedy, the death of 39 supporters in the stands in Heysel in Belgium during another European Cup final. So let's keep that in mind as we talk about this, that these occurrences do happen in Italy. There's like every so often, like every 3 years or so, there might be like a stabbing outside of a stadium as the hooligans, the ultras, they're called in Italy, of the two clubs clash with each other. But this was different. This isn't football fans, sections of hooligans who, actually organize their fights with the opposition hooligans. They go to these matches to pick a fight. It's kind of what they do, but it's very well organized actually. Like they know where they're going to fight. They usually fight in somewhere away from the stadium. These aren't hooligans. These are Maghrebis, Africans, sub-Saharan Africans. They are the reason why Saint Denis has become a no-go zone, doing the things that have caused this region to this area to become a no-go zone. They weren't picking fights with other groups of ultras or hooligans. They were robbing people, fans, innocent fans. They were targeting. I've read reports that they were targeting the elderly and children to mug them, to steal their phones, to sexually assault them, to molest them. And the reason they were going after their phones wasn't just to get a new generation iPhone or whatever, but also because of the fact that the tickets to get into the stadium, a lot of people had digital tickets. The tickets were on their phones. Now, I'm a kind of a Luddite, so I don't know if you rob someone's phone and it's off or it's blocked, like how do you enter someone's phone and then you have to know where they have their digital ticket saved on their phone, but I suppose these people know how to do that. So anyway, that's some of the stuff that's what was happening. I've got some more videos here. Let me just get into some more of what was going on. There's a lot more. It's crazy, guys. All right, so here, let's see. I've showed you the one of them running through. I've showed you the one of them climbing the fence. Okay, so that's what was going on before the match. Oh, and there's also this one. This is the police. This is how the police responded, by the way. This is incredible. Remember that this is the French police that are too frightened and impotent to go into these no-go zones when they are in flames, when they are attacking people in the metro, at bus stops. There's even in some of these no-go zones in France, when an ambulance has to go into the no-go zones, it's accompanied by a police security escort. That's how bad it's gone. It's not because the French have suddenly become so violent and antisocial in their own towns and cities. It's because these banlieues, these suburbs, have descended into the third world because they are populated by the third world. And so anyway, keep that in mind. Keep that cowardice and impotence in mind when you look at this video of how the French police treat this Liverpool fan just trying to get into the stadium. This is incredible. All right, here we go. Now that last guy, the fan that we saw on his knees, he might have been sucker punched in the jugular there. I don't really know what happens to him. We don't see what happens to him, but you have to understand from everything that I've read from French sources, from French eyewitnesses, from people who were there, from the Spanish people who were there, from English people who were there, getting into the stadium was like going through the gauntlet just to get in. They were being attacked by these migrant populations, by these passport-holding Frenchies, by these French in name in passport-only people. So when you see that fan is like holding his throat, and then what are the police doing though? Spraying some kid just scanning his ticket at the turnstile. It's incredible. And I don't know what they sprayed him with, because if it was pepper spray, he would have been really, really in a lot paint. I don't know what they sprayed him with. On Odyssey, I got a guy saying, 2 men returned from Syria a few days ago after firing Kalashnikovs and rocket launchers. They were able to go to Stade de France. Yes, thank you, because I have that video as well. So let's take a look at that. Just to give you some more flavor of the chaos and the type of people that was going on at this football match. Something that is supposed to be the crown jewel of European club football. It's it should be a nice thing. This is the reason why we can't have nice things. And we'll talk later about the whole sports ball meme and that sort of thing. I know people in our sphere kind of deride sport, and I understand that totally, and we'll talk about that later. But it's like the same with film and television and art and music. Sport as well has been subverted, and it's been turned into a commodity, and it's been turned into an outlet for Marxist global homo propaganda. But in and of itself, sport is actually something that's been a part of European culture for thousands of years. There's nothing in and of itself that's bad about sport. And this is supposed to be a nice thing, a good time, a celebration of the 2 best teams in Europe playing in the final. And we can't even have that. So let me get the next video here of the guys, the guys with the Kalashnikovs. Okay, so here's the video. And I'm just going to share it for you now.
N'a pas arrivé ici. Voilà, on est venu voir de nous-mêmes.
Pas la guerre ici en tout cas.
N'écoutez pas la télé. On est venu voir ici. Tout se passe bien. C'est super cool ici en fait. On va faire un petit barbecue. T'as capté avec le.
Comment ça fait comment? À la Kalachnikov, les frères. Ça tire comment? Ça fait comment? À la Kalachnikov. Ça tire comment? Ça fait comment? À la Kalachnikov. Ça tire comment? Ça fait comment? À la Kalachnikov. Son!
Okay, so keep your eye on this guy. I'm going to play this again. Keep your eye on this guy, because I'm going to show you another video with him. Apparently, they are in Syria. So we can assume that these are the so-called Syrian refugees that European countries like Germany and France and Italy and Britain and Ireland all took in en masse starting around 2015 and throughout the years. Look how nice and white his teeth are. That's one good-looking refugee.
N'a pas arrivé ici. Voilà, on est venu voir de nous-mêmes.
Pas la guerre ici en tout cas.
N'écoutez pas la télé. On est venu voir ici. Tout se passe bien. C'est super cool ici en fait. On va faire un petit barbecue. T'as capté avec le.
Comment ça fait comment? À la Kalachnikov, les frères. Ça tire comment? Ça fait comment? À la Kalachnikov. Ça tire comment? Ça fait comment?
He's asking them if they know how it works, how to fire these Kalashnikovs. He's going to show them how to fire Kalashnikovs. Now, I don't have anything against young men learning how to operate firearms, but again, they're coming from a war zone. They're pretending to be refugees, and they're trigger-happy, young men. Maybe we should have some discussion and some second thoughts about the type of people who are coming in. And that our governments are letting in to our countries.
À la Kalachnikov. Ça tire comment? Ça fait comment? À la Kalachnikov. Son!
Yeah. All right. So now, keep that last guy's image in mind, because here he appears at the stadium. This guy who knows how long ago, maybe not too long ago, was in Syria firing Kalashnikovs and rocket launchers. Now he's going into a stadium with along with you and your family, terrorizing you. And also watch what the security at the stadium does. All right, let me find this video. All right. Oh, I've got so many. I think it's this one here. Or maybe I didn't. If by the way, these are all these videos are on my Telegram too. So if you want to find them, they're on my Telegram. Let's see. Maybe I didn't pull up the video of them coming into the stadium. Hold on. No, I don't think I have it. Well, I can fix that. Hold on. Let me just put that up there real quick. 1 second, guys. All right. Okay, so let me just get this video for you here now. I got it. Okay, so there's your man. There's your man who was in Syria firing Kalashnikovs not too long ago.
Ah, je suis plus connu que Cyril. Cyril, je suis passé de ma partie.
Now, again, do you see many Spaniards? Do you see many Scousers in there? And also, someone in my Telegram mentioned that the person who's ducking under the turnstile in the gray tracksuit is a pretty famous television presenter named Cyril. And I think he's right, because you can hear the guy, the Syrian, Kalashnikov shooter, call him by name, Cyril. Now, again, we don't have all the context here. Maybe they're ducking under the turnstiles because it's not scanning their tickets or whatever. So they're just saying, well, fuck it, let's just hop over or go under because it's broken. But again, I doubt it, given the information that we've had from what occurred, just in and of itself, and from the eyewitness accounts. So again, let's watch it again. And apparently this serial guy, he's like one of the wealthiest television presenters, according to what someone told me in my Telegram chat.
Ah, je suis plus connu que Cyril. Cyril, je suis passé de ma partie.
All right, and my French isn't what it used to be, but I wouldn't understand his particular way of speaking it. Yeah, and notice how the black guy in the suit, I think might be a type of security guard, and he's just taking selfies. But I think it's also interesting, like, what are Syrians who fire Kalashnikovs and rocket launchers in Syria and film themselves and are all like gung-ho about it? That's fine, whatever. But then they come here under the guise of being poor refugees. But also, how do they know one of the wealthiest television presenters in France? How do they know each other? If these are such, down on their luck, woe is me refugees that have come here into our open arms, what is going on? Like, what is this? How do they know the most famous television presenter in France? How does the most famous television presenter in France not have the money to pay for a ticket? Why is he going under the turnstile? And then their co-ethnic, or more or less, security guard is just letting it all happen and taking selfies. And there was other, co-racialists that we saw in the mix, walking through the turnstile as well, or walking through the bottleneck as well. So it's total chaos going on there. Okay, now that's what happened. That's what I've got for you about what happened before the match. Those are the videos. Now I've also got some screenshots for you that I've taken from all over French Twitter, Spanish Twitter, and English Twitter. So let me show you some more eyewitness accounts of what was going on before, and then also we're going to look at what happened after kickoff when the sun was down. As you can imagine, things got worse. Okay, so let me get this next image for you. I think I'm going to show you this one here. Okay, so this is a French, no, I'm sorry, this is a Spanish Twitter user talking about Saint-Denis and what it would like to get there. I get to the stadium. Just 1 second here. I'm sure there are faster ways to show images and videos, but like I said, I'm kind of a Luddite. I'm not used to this stuff, so just bear with me. Okay. Okay, can you guys see that image? Just let me know if you can. I think you guys can all see this, yep. Okay, so this is Luis Moscardo in Twitter. And what he's saying here is that he saw girls crying because they were touching them. These types that I've just showed you, they were touching the girls, they were molesting the girls. And then he says that they were living in an authentic state of panic because wherever you were outside the stadium, they were following you. And the police did nothing. UEFA, which is the European organizing body of football, they're basically like the NFL of football, right? Did nothing. There was no protection, there was no security. The Spanish and English traveling supporters were basically thrown into the lion's den, helpless. And then he finishes by saying, I understand perfectly why there is an enormous percentage of French people who want change. But, you know, the elite ruling class fortify elections, and we don't get the change that we want in Europe. And the French don't get the change that they want in France. Because I do agree, I do believe that there's an enormous percentage of French who want change. But we're going to look at some of the reactions of the people, and some of those people who do want change, some of the people who do have their eyes open, and then we're also going to look at the reaction of people who refuse to open their eyes and admit that there's a problem. Okay, so let me get rid of that. Okay. All right. Then there were some more eyewitness accounts. Just bear with me. Okay. I think I'm going to show you the Liverpool fan. Yeah. Yes. Okay. This is what I want to show you now. Also, I'm using a Mac, and I don't usually use Macs. So this is kind of, like I said, it's going to be a bit wonky, but whatever. Usually my streams, when I have like a guest on, they go for about 90 minutes. I think this is going to be pretty long because I've got so much stuff, guys. And seriously, save this video, edit like this video, and share what I'm showing you, because there is a huge international media campaign to scapegoat, to pass the blame onto the fans here and just brush this under the rug. So take a look here at what this Liverpool fan shared on Twitter. Okay. Don't have to do any translation for most of my audience, I'm sure. There you go. 2 hours queuing, only got in for halftime, tear gassed 4 times, despite the fact we were nothing but peaceful. My 14-year-old cousin beat up by people trying to steal his ticket. Don't let them blame us. There you have it. There you have it, folks. There you have it. And when he says don't let them blame us, the them he's referring to is not just scum of the earth journos in left-wing or regime-licking media organizations. We're talking about the French state. Okay, the French state is trying to blame the fans when it's the fans who are the victims of this. It's unbelievable. Okay, so we have that account. All right, and then let me get some more here for you. Okay, I want to talk about this guy on Twitter. I have his I have his images, his screenshots saved as Ukrainian flag twat. And you'll see why. All right, let me get his images put up here. Hope this isn't too painful for you guys as I file through all my images. Man, clicking and dragging something on Mac is like ridiculous. Okay, there we go. Thank you. Okay. All right, so this guy is Martin Varsavsky. He's got the Ukrainian flag, the current thing in the bio. And he says, I'm an immigrant in Spain, living in Spain, and I have always supported immigration. But what we experienced last night in Paris was a horror for our family and all the fans. Hundreds of, he calls them Parisian Africans. At least he's naming them. Hundreds of Parisian Africans attacking the fans, laughing at us, and seeing us in panic. And this is what's really interesting here. It was racism against the Europeans. It was racism against Europeans. Okay, so that's what was going on outside the stadium. This is what they're trying to cover up. This is what I'm saying. This wasn't just hooliganism. This wasn't clashes between Madrid fans and Liverpool fans that you might expect every now and again at a football match. This was a wave of Africans and Arabs attacking Europeans because they were European, because they were easy targets. And this is what Macron and his Minister of Sport, which I'll show you later, is trying to cover up. This is what the media is trying to cover up, and they're trying to blame the fans. But let's talk about this guy, Varsavsky, because, like I said, we're going to talk about how this can be a red pilling moment and how this can wake people up, but also how some people just keep sticking their heads in the sand. Because look at what he says later. I got his second. He had a series of tweets that he made on Twitter, and all of them, it's like, you're right on the cusp of getting it. Why won't you just admit there's a problem? Just understand. Okay, so here we have this one here. Let me get it for you. I have to find photo Ukraine twat 2. All right, there you are. Okay. All right, here he is again. I love this. So in this part, he's responding to someone who had responded to him on Twitter, saying, in agreement with him that, he's always supported immigration too. The problem isn't immigration. the problem is lack of integration, that sort of thing. Okay. To which Martin responds, yes, I totally agree. I'm an immigrant. But the millions of Arab attackers, French Arab attackers last night hated us in a way that I've never seen or felt before. It was a shock. They were laughing seeing us suffer. They were laughing at seeing the suffering of our children who are 9 and 5 years old, who were crying in panic. Okay? So this guy has just, not only he himself, but his children, 9 and 5 years old, crying in panic, being attacked by hordes of sub-Saharans and Maghrebis, and he's still going to support mass immigration. He's still going to support a multicultural and multiracial society. But what I love is the response, which got 445 likes at the moment of me taking the screenshot, from the guy below him. Because as much as there are people like this guy, Varsavsky, who refuse to open their eyes, refuse to change their minds, refuse to admit, okay, I got it wrong. It's okay. Instead, they double down, they triple down. Well, the response here from Alex PYBR, he says, nice red pill. And by the way, like just for the Anglosphere, a lot of times in the Anglosphere, I think there's a lot more feeling of, feeling black pilled, feeling like there's no hope. In continental Europe and in places like Southern Europe and in large parts of France, people are perhaps a bit more red-pilled than you might think in the Anglosphere, and a lot of our dissident right vernacular from the Anglosphere has trickled into Spanish, French, Italian. So you will see Spaniards and Frenchies and Italians using expressions like red pill, like based. Here in Spain, it's basado or basadísimo if it's really based, or la píldora roja if they use their own Spanish. In this particular case, he just uses the English term red pill. So he says, nice red pill. What you experienced in just one day, other citizens live it every day. It's very comfortable to support progressive politics, which other people are going to suffer. And that is so perfect, because this is what we see time and time again. The progressives, the ruling class, the quote-unquote elite, keep pushing these open borders policies, but never have to live anywhere near the people that they are ferrying into our countries, ferrying into our towns and cities, and even countryside now. They live in their gated communities, they live in their high rises, they live in their swanky apartments and nice little terraced houses. They never have to deal with it, but on Saturday they did. On Saturday they did. And what's really interesting too is that this took place, the Champions League final took place kind of simultaneously with the Cannes Film Festival. So again, the elite in Cannes are all sipping champagne and walking the red carpet, totally protected, totally, basically in a homogenous European setting. There's no, diversity running around off the leash there. But the people in Paris who just want to watch a football match have to deal with the shit that the actors and celebrities and journos at Cannes keep promoting and pushing constantly. Except this guy, this blue check with the Ukrainian flag, he had to live it. For once, he had to live it. But let me show you the last screenshot I took of him. He doesn't get it. He still doesn't get it. Even though his own children were reduced to tears and panic from being attacked by these people. Like, what kind of father are you where you can't even admit that perhaps there's a really big fucking problem going on here, and maybe you need to make some changes in your worldview because your children were threatened. Guy, it's unbelievable. All right, so let me just get Ukraine twat number 3 and just show you how he kept doubling down. All right, gonna cancel this one here. Get out of there. All right. All right, there we go. Oh my gosh. I just want to click and drag a file. Why won't you let me? There we go. Okay, so this is what the guy tweeted out after the French elections. Take a look at this. Macron won. Racism lost. Le Pen lost. Trump lost. Putin lost. EU won. Obama won. Like, what the fuck is he bringing in Obama for? Obama won. And most importantly, France won. Yeah. Enjoy your victory lap with your crying children in a state of panic. And talking about Obama won, let's never forget that one of the biggest reasons why these migrants and quote unquote refugees, these refugees who repay our goodwill and our good graces by forming grooming gangs and turning our cities into no-go zones, this is the effect, the consequence of Obama and Hillary Clinton going into Libya and assassinating Gaddafi, because Gaddafi was basically a bulwark. Gaddafi's Libya was a bulwark against the waves of sub-Saharan migrants, the modern-day slave trade that is going on, that has reappeared in Africa, in Libya, and not prior to his assassination. He not much time before his assassination. Gaddafi and the premier of Italy at the time, Silvio Berlusconi, had come to an agreement. As an Italian, this pisses me off so much, guys. Berlusconi and Gaddafi had come to an agreement where Italy was going to invest in Libya, in infrastructure, in aid, all that kind of stuff, right? In exchange, Gaddafi was going to keep the ports defended. He was going to keep the Libyan border defended. There weren't going to be these waves of economic migrants and fake refugees and potential terrorists swarming into Europe via Italy, the islands of Sicily, Lampedusa in particular. Then some of them stay in Italy. Many of them head north to the richer countries like France and the United Kingdom and Germany. But port of entry is usually southern Spain and Italy for the most part, when we're talking about the migrants who are coming in from sub-Saharan Africa and the Maghreb. But in come the Americans, in comes Obama and Clinton. And what did Clinton say? We came, we saw, he died. And if you read the book, A History of Central Banking, the author of that book, I believe his name is Stephen Mitford, Stephen something. But the title of the book is A History of Central Banking. And if you read that book, he makes the case, it's a pretty good case, that the main reason why Macron, who also was a part of the decision to go in and eliminate Gaddafi, Macron, Clinton, and Obama, basically NATO, went in to Libya to whack Gaddafi because he was going to start basically an African currency and get off the dollar and affect the petrodollar, weaken the petrodollar. And NATO couldn't tolerate that, so they went in and did what they have done many times throughout the years to those who dare to oppose the Federal Reserve and the hegemony of the American dollar. So there you go. But yeah, look at this guy, this blue check on Twitter, days after the election in France, celebrating that Macron won, racism lost, Le Pen lost, Trump lost, blah, blah, blah. And yet he got to live in first person the consequences of that election. I really hope that he reflects on what happened. I hope it haunts his dreams. I hope the cries of his children haunt him in his sleep until he comes around to the normal position. The normal position. It is not evil. It is not wrong. It is not immoral to believe that this has gone too far. This is not immigration. This is invasion. This is not sharing of culture. This is a danger. This is a hazard to the well-being of the European people throughout the continent, throughout the countries, throughout the cities in which we live. All right. So let's see. Should I share with you some more reactions, or should we go to what happened after the match? I think it's kind of related anyway. All right, so let's see here. What do I want to show you guys next? Yeah, the thumbnail of this video is some guys jumping the fence, some diversity jumping the fence. We all know that. So I think that doesn't need to be, I don't need to share that. All right. Okay, yeah, I'll give you guys some more reaction, some more white pills for you. Good reactions, okay? So let me show you. First, let me show you basically the Spanish version of The Guardian. It's a newspaper called El País. Okay, and I'm going to show you the headline that they're running with, the utter lies that they are running with. But I'm going to show you. So that's like the sort of the black pill part. But I'm going to show you the based response. There are people who are calling them out, and I'm not on Twitter anymore, so I was just an observer. But if you're on Twitter, you can get involved in this as well and try and stop these lies. All right, let me again get this image for you. Okay. No, fuck off. I don't want you. Okay. There has got to be a faster way to share screens on StreamYard. All right, so you can see this image here. So this is the headline from Spain's version of The Guardian. Okay, this is like your typical cringe SJW left-wing newspaper. And it says, the French government assures that between 30,000 and 40,000 British fans tried to enter the stadium of Saint-Denis without tickets or with false tickets, which provoked a chain of disaster. See, they're trying to blame the English fans. It's like typical French bastards. I sympathize with the English here. This is unfair. This is unfair. It is pure lies that this is the fault of the English. I've showed you video evidence. I've showed you some of the testimony of people who were there. I'm going to show you even more. Okay, but this is like they think they can get away with this. And just look how they have augmented the lie. 30 to 40,000 British fans, that's what they're saying happened. 30, despite the video evidence, despite the testimony of people who were there, 30,000 to 40,000 British fans tried to enter the stadium. That's what the French government's going with? Based on what? Do they think we're not capable of watching video? It's just ridiculous. Okay, but right below this tweet from El País, we had a nice based reaction. I'm going to show you, actually there was a few reactions that I liked. So let me just show you those. Okay, and gotcha. Okay, you can see this one, yeah? So this guy says, is that how it started, the chain of disasters? Yeah, the English who came without tickets, and then hundreds of what they call them, Moros and Spaniards, these like, you know, the Arabs, hundreds of Arabs and blacks just decided to start robbing and assaulting people who went to go see the match? Come on, it's obvious. And I don't understand how you can't see it. 215 likes, good. Okay, so he's calling them out. Then there was another guy who posted something really nice. I think it's this one here. Yeah. Okay, so then again, right on that that tweet from El País, the Spanish Guardian, this guy responds with this meme, which says, if you repeat a lie enough time, it becomes, and instead of saying truth, they've crossed off truth, and it's journalism. So it says, if you repeat a lie enough time, it becomes journalism. Perfect. 227 likes, good. Okay, so people are calling this out. They are fed up. So that's a bit of a white pill. Okay, let's go to some more. Okay, I think we're gonna go now to what's going on after the match. Okay, so I'm gonna show you now some more videos and some more eyewitness accounts of what happened after. Okay, I think you guys are gonna like this one. This is what some Liverpool fans here, this is just a taste, an isolated incident of what was going on all over the place after the match when night had fallen. Yep. So remember, the French media, the French state, they're trying to blame the English fans for all of this. Did that look like English fans being to blame there? You've got a group of Arab, passport in name only Frenchies, Parisians coming up to these guys. And thank God they defended themselves, because that's the only thing that these people understand. Nice right hook to the jaw. Actually, looked more like a jab to me, to be honest. But anyway, it was effective. Let's just watch that again. Look at them. You can tell they're rocking up. Give us your phones. Give us your money. And good thing that they were in groups as well, because you have got to defend yourselves in groups. It's the only way. So credit to them. Good on them. Let's talk about some more of what was going on. What else? I think I'm going to go now to one of the most crazy accounts. Again, this stuff was on my Telegram as well if you want to go and see it there. Okay, so this is news report, an eyewitness account that was reported in a Spanish media outlet called 20 Minutos, 20 minutes. Don't know why it's called that, but whatever. Okay, so just let me get this here for you. All right. Okay, so this headline says, and after the final in Paris came the Inferno. They were armies of thieves hunting the fans, in quotes. That's the quote of one of the testimonies, the eyewitnesses. Okay, then the subtitle says here, the fans of Real Madrid and Liverpool suffered a nightmare at the end of the match. Okay, so that's the headline. Good. Like, seriously, screenshot these. You know, I know maybe you guys don't speak Spanish or anything like that, but that's why I wanted to do this, because I speak Spanish, so I'm getting, and the Spanish team was involved in the final. I used to live in France. I did get to a good level of French when I lived there. I've, you know, forgotten some, but the final was in France, so I'm reading French media. And then, of course, you know, there's the British side, the English-speaking side of things as well. But yeah, like, this is what they're trying to sweep under the rug, that it was hell, it was an inferno. Okay, so then let's look at just what exactly were the testimonies shared to this media outlet called 20 Minutes. Okay, so let me get you this, what I screenshotted from this account here. Okay. All right, so this is from the article. This is Jose Francisco. So this isn't some anonymous source. This guy gave his name. Okay. And he says, it says here, when Jose Francisco left the field, left the stadium, this is the scene he found. And these are his words. You saw gangs of these types of people going towards the stadium. All right, so, okay, like, these are people that were not in the stadium. They're like basically camping out, like an army, camping out, like an army besieging a castle, camped out, waiting for the fans to leave the match. And by the way, players have also complained. Liverpool players, Real Madrid players have also complained that their families told them we were in danger. And the players have come and said that there was no protection. This is a disgrace. This is crazy. And all the world is seeing that this is Macron's Paris. This is Macron's France. And that is why they're trying to sweep it under the rug, because you've got some of the best, you know, most famous footballers in the world saying this was a disgrace. You can't ignore their words. This is, you know, they've got tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of followers. You can't ignore what they're saying. And they're saying it live in front of the cameras. But let's continue with what this guy said. So you saw gangs of these types of people, we know who he's referring to, heading towards the stadium, stealing, mugging with cutters to cut bags, box cutters, I imagine, box cutters. I couldn't believe what was happening. There were hundreds and hundreds. I went to the metro and I saw people just going crazy down there. Imagine what was happening in the metro, underground. They were throwing pepper spray, gas canisters, and it even affected us. And then the article writes, pure survival instinct kicked in and took the fans to come together to look for people and defend themselves. And then this guy Jose Francisco says the fans came together, all together, one another, and formed shields, human shields, to defend ourselves better. Fans from Real Madrid, fans from Liverpool, everyone. It didn't matter. It was basically, it doesn't matter now what team or what city you're from. This was European unity. This was pan-European solidarity. This was European defense against the invader, which is actually, I kind of like this. Like, it's kind of inspiring, but they had to. This is self-defense. So they formed shields to defend themselves better. Fans from Real Madrid, fans from Liverpool. Later, I found out that many girls had been stripped naked and robbed. Okay? Let that sink in. He's not the only one who's mentioned this. There are dozens of accounts that I know of, if not hundreds more, dozens of people saying that girls and women were touched, sexually assaulted, and this guy says that they were desnudado. Okay, so that means stripped. Now you can just imagine. Think, Cologne, New Year's Eve, a few years ago. These hordes of third worlders rush the exiting fans. They grab women by their blouses, by their purses, by their skirts, whatever, by their scarves, ripping them off the bodies of these women and girls. They were attacking the young and the old. Okay, tearing off their clothes, doing God knows what else with their dirty hands, stealing, filling them up. Okay, and Lion Man says here, let the women feel their wrath. Feminism needs a slap down. Yes, I know it's hard to have sympathy. Let me just take a glass of water here. I know it's hard to have sympathy, but I try to maintain a little bit of humanity. I know it's been really hard, especially over the past 2 years. But maybe not, these women aren't feminists. Maybe they don't support what's been going on here. Maybe they just want to enjoy a football match with their families. But yeah, I do agree that this is, we often say it has to get a lot worse before it gets better. So I definitely sympathize with that comment, Lion Man. Okay, so that's the nightmare scenario after the match. Let's look at some more examples. Oh, I also want to show you this. This happened on the pitch, on the field of play, right before kickoff. Take a look at this. 1 second here. You guys are gonna love this. See that? That's your Liverpool players taking the knee before kickoff. 2 years after the fact. 2 years after, some drug-addicted African American, didn't do nothing, dies in Minnesota 2 years after a European football team's players, which have no connection whatsoever to that event, are still taking the knee. Unbelievable. And again, like I said earlier, continental Europe is still, it's pretty base sometimes. So credit to the Madrid players for not doing that shit. Okay. OMG. OMFG. They are still kneeling to Fentanyl Floyd. Yep. I couldn't believe it either. I couldn't believe it. But yep, apparently they are. Unbelievable. And this is, again, it's just so infuriating that we in Europe and in the United States and in Canada and Australia, throughout the West, we keep doing this shit. We keep opening our arms, taking them in, trying to be nice, taking the knee over and over again. And this is what we get in return. We get our daughters and our wives and our girlfriends attacked and molested, and our grandparents or our parents, our elderly parents, attacked, stripped, mugged by the people that those footballers are supposedly taking the knee for, right? The poor, oppressed minorities. Fuck off. It's disgusting. I hope I never, ever see another football team doing this. But of course, to be honest, I don't watch football because this is just, it's too cringe. It's too disgusting. It doesn't deserve my time. It doesn't deserve your time. Certainly doesn't deserve your money. But we'll get to that towards the end. I do want to talk about that. Okay, so that was a bit of a digression. That's not what I wanted to show you. I want to keep going on with what was going on after the match. So let me just get back to my enormous file of images and videos. Okay. Yes, I will show you this now. This is the French government trying to sweep it under the rug, blame the fans. This was shocking as well. I have this image is saved under French Minister Cunt. So just get ready. Actually, now that I think about it, I kind of am liking this setup for the screenshots. It takes so long for me to get, but I can sort of hype them up with these little one-liners and stuff. Oh, this Mac computer is so weird. I need a mouse is what I need. This would be much easier with a mouse. All right, there we go. Okay, so this is what the French Minister of Sport tweeted out after the match. So she says, "Bravo, Real Madrid, for their 14th title in the Champions League. The attempts of intrusion and fraud of thousands of English supporters." To all my English fans, all my English friends who are watching this, who are following me on Telegram, who are in the chat, how do you feel? How do you feel, guys? This is the French Minister of Sport blaming thousands of English supporters, calling you out by nationality. The attempts of intrusion and fraud, ticket fraud, of the thousands of English supporters complicated the work of the stadium, police forces, the security, but they did not ruin this victory. Violence has no place in the stadiums. But it has plenty of place in your banlieue, doesn't it? But just look at that. Let that sink in. She's blaming, by name, English fans. Pretty incredible. You see why I labeled that file French Minister Cunt. Okay, let's get rid of this one here. And I'll show you some more reaction. Okay, so then there's some information that's filtering out from the French police themselves. And I have here someone who tweeted some of the data, some of the facts that are coming out from police reports. Okay, not propaganda, not lies, actual police reports of who's been detained. The numbers seem a bit small to me, but I'm sure these numbers are going to go up. Okay, so let's take a look at this here. Okay, so this is a guy on Twitter who's citing another account called Valeur. It looks like it's got like 300,000 followers on Twitter. It looks like it's a sort of media outlet. They sort of compile, headlines and news. It's just a sort of online, media outlet. It's called Valeur. And anyway, so this guy says that Valeur has recovered the nationality of the first GIVs. This is like the detained. I don't exactly know what the GIV stands for, but the first detainees, the first captured delinquents, criminals. So Valeur has gathered together the nationality of the first detainees of Saint Denis on Saturday. Not one Englishman, not one Spaniard, but the majority are Algerians, 18, Tunisians, 2, and Moroccans, 2. Then there are 9 quote-unquote French, of which 7 have names of African or Maghreb origin, according to a police source. Okay, now considering that we have eyewitness accounts saying that there were hundreds and hundreds of these people, I expect, and I hope that these numbers go up, because it's ridiculous if the French police only detained, 18, some 2 here, 2 there. Okay, but yeah, there you go. Not one Englishman detained, not one Spaniard, but a whole bunch of passport Frenchies, Algerians, Tunisians, French in passport only. Okay, so there's that bit of truth. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about some more of the reaction from everyone, basically, from the population, from people who are fed up, from people who are, like I showed you on Twitter, who are quote unquote clapping back, I guess is the expression nowadays, at the mainstream media and the lies that they're trying to spread. But let's also take a look at some of the reaction of political parties, politicians. So I'm going to show you another video here. It's in Spanish. I'm going to translate what she said for you. But I'll just play it here. Okay, so the woman on your screen on the right in the blue, I'm sorry, in the purple top, that's Macarena Olona. She's a candidate for Vox. Now, I've spoken about Vox on several occasions. I've been asked about Vox on even more occasions, and I've always maintained that that Vox is basically a CivNet party, okay? Santiago Abascal is the president of Vox, and he is better than the party he is the leader of. He says a lot of good things. He doesn't back down. He doesn't apologize. But his party is more or less one of civic nationalism. It's one of, as long as they come here legally, it's all good. And as you're going to listen here, Macarena Olona is a candidate for elections in Andalusia. Okay, so I'll just let her say her thing, and then I'll tell you what she said.
No tiene que ver ni con la raza ni con la nacionalidad. Lo que nos informan las fuerzas policiales, las imágenes que, como bien has dicho, hemos podido ver todo sobre lo acontecido en Saint-Denis. Hemos visto súbditos de origen magrebí y hemos visto súbditos africanos que eran los autores de las agresiones. Habéis hablado de robos con fuerza, tocamientos, Ana, es la información que yo tengo de manera directa también de personas que estuvieron allí presentes, tocamientos a mujeres. Y esto no es criminalizar porque no tiene que ver ni con la raza ni con la nacionalidad, tiene que ver con la cultura, Ana. Y no todas las culturas son respetables.
Okay, so I hope you guys can hear that. Hope it played all right. Let me just check in the chat, because it's really, really important what we're going to talk about here. Could you guys hear that all right? Odyssey, YouTube, just let me know. No habla español. Well, I'll assume that means you could hear it then. Okay, so what she said was, she begins by trying to deflect and defend herself. And she says that this has nothing to do, her criticisms of what happened in Saturday, the criticisms of Vox, have nothing to do with racism. It doesn't have anything to do with that. And then she goes on to say, we're talking about muggings, attacks. And she says, tocamientos de mujeres. That's, groping women. Okay, so she's listing all the things that happened. Violent muggings, violent attacks. And then she says, but it has nothing to do neither with race or nationality. It's a question of culture. And not all cultures are worthy of respect. Not all cultures are respectable. I think this argument is just so tiresome. It's all so tiresome. But it's kind of funny too, that the civic nationalists think it's better to say that it's just your culture that's shit. It's not you, it's your culture. Just the thing that your people have been cultivating and fomenting for thousands of years, your language, your religion, your values, the way you perceive life, the priorities you give to life. It's all that's shit and doesn't work and is dysfunctional and not worthy of respect. Somehow in their minds, and actually in the minds of most people, it seems, that's the okay argument. I'm here to say that the culture comes from the nationality, comes from the ethnicity. Remember that nation comes from the Latin, then via French, nacer, born, to be born. You're born into a tribe. You are born into the nation. The nation is a familial bond. Your ethnos, ethnicity, that's the Greek, means the same thing. Your culture comes from the people first. If it was just a question of culture, why doesn't everyone have our culture? Why is it so difficult for them to integrate to our culture? Because we, over time, we Europeans, developed a completely different culture, and different even amongst ourselves. These people then come in, and this is how they treat us. This is how they behave. And it's not because of their culture. They targeted children and the elderly as the guy with the Ukrainian flag said it was racism against Europeans. We all know that the countries that the majority of these people come from are more or less third world. But they don't behave like this in their own countries, or they don't get away with it. It's true, over the years, I've read many reports about how, they literally aren't sending their best. A lot of these people that come in the NGO boats, in the dinghies, they are basically being exiled by their families. Their families are sick of having to deal with these deadbeats. And so they just say, get on the boat. I've saved up, 1,500 euros to pay the human trafficker. Get on the boat, go to Europe, get out of my house. You're a deadbeat. Okay. So what I mean to say is, yes, the countries that they come from can be in disarray, a bit dysfunctional, a bit third world. North Africa isn't that bad, though. I would say North Africa is second world. Okay. And this type of behavior, they don't go around doing this in their own countries. They don't go around when there's a football match in their own country targeting women and children for muggings. I'm not even sure many of the countries they come from, women and children will be allowed to the football matches, right? They don't form gangs of pickpockets and thieves, armies of thieves in their own countries. They come here to do it here because they are targeting us on a racial basis. They are targeting us because they know or they feel that we are weak and defenseless. And of course, when it comes to the people who should be defending us, you could very well say that we are defenseless. And in many European countries where it's not very easy to even walk around with a pocket knife, let alone a concealed carry, yes, we are in many ways defenseless. And they perceive that and they act accordingly. So this doesn't just have to do with culture, because this isn't the culture of them in their own countries. This is an invasion. It is a clash of ethnicities, and it is not wrong to declare such. That's the first thing I want to address, is this civic nationalism point of view. Another thing that the centrists, the center-right, and Vox is center-right, I'm sorry, Vox is center-right. Lega in Italy is center-right. Salvini is way worse than Abascal. Abascal is all right, I think, more or less. I could have some criticisms of him, but Salvini is a Zio-shill grifter. And Lega in Italy, people had lots of hope that Lega was going to stop the boats, and Salvini actually did try, to his credit. But at the end of the day, again, their position is, well, as long as they come here legally. Salvini is constantly doing photo ops with all of the sub-Saharans that come off the boats and land on Italian soil and start living in Italy. And Salvini, during election times, he's always out there taking photos with them, because as long as they're wearing a Lega hat or a t-shirt, or as long as they're going to vote Lega, now they're just as Italian as spaghetti carbonara. I disagree. No. And I don't care if they come here legally. And I also don't care if they're high IQ, hardworking, little angels of the earth. They don't have the right to come here en masse and replace us in our only homelands. But we'll come more to that later. Like I said, this is going to be a long stream. I've got a lot to talk about. So I want to show you some more of what Vox and their party members, what they were saying. I want to give you a taste of what the reaction from the so-called, in Spain, Vox is like, basically a Francoist fascist party. They're always slandered as being the extreme far right. You all know it's the same thing that happens elsewhere. But really, they're so milquetoast. And they're a bit delusional. So let me get you this image here. Yep, that's the one. Okay. Okay, so this is the same woman, Macarena Olona. Okay, and this was Vox, the official Vox Twitter account. Their take on this. This says, we don't want the failed model, the failed multicultural model of Saint-Denis to reproduce itself in the Andalusian neighborhoods. With Macarena Olona in the Andalusian parliament, there will be a firm hand against mass immigration or against mass uncontrolled, unchecked immigration, right? Because that's what they always say. It's just uncontrolled. It's just too much, too fast. This is something that Douglas Murray wrote countless times in his books, in his articles, that it's just too fast. The solution is just to slow it down so that we can adapt better to our ethnic cleansing, to our death by 1,000 cuts. And what really strikes me, you're seeing it here in this tweet from Vox, and I'm going to show you another one. They imagine they're using the future tense. They're saying that we don't want this to happen in future in Spain, in Andalusia. I'm sorry, Vox, it's already happening. Let me show you another take from a Vox diputado. This is actually the vice secretary of Vox. Let me get that reaction here. Okay, so this is the vice secretary of Vox, and he tweeted, in summary, what we have experienced today in Saint-Denis, returning to Spain, is like returning back to the future from Spain. He's saying like what we lived in Saint-Denis, and now we're coming back to Spain. It's like we were in Spain's future. Okay, we're going back to the future, a future which is waiting for us if we don't stop the free bar of immigration uncontrolled, the accusations of racism, basically saying that if we don't stop the uncontrolled immigration, if we don't stand up to accusations of being racist, what's happening in Spain, what's happening in France will happen in Spain. And then he says, taking back common sense is our responsibility. 11,000 likes. Okay, fine, great. I especially like the part of standing up against accusations of being a racist. Great. It's about time that we took our own side. That's good. But stop talking about the future tense. This isn't Spain's future. It's Spain's present. It's Italy's present. It's Sweden's present. It's Germany's present. It's Ireland's present. It's Britain's present. There are entire parts of Spain and Spanish cities which are no-go zones as well. Barcelona, for one example. That city is becoming a colony of North Africans and Sub-Saharan Africans. There's a barrio, a neighborhood called Lavapié, which is famous for being completely now Africanized. Okay, the native Spaniards from that barrio, that neighborhood, are gone. They don't live there anymore. They've been ethnically cleansed. They've been demographically replaced. And that place, Lavapié, is famously a no-go zone. So this isn't future tense stuff, Ivan, Vice Secretary of Vox. I used to live in Granada, not a very big city, okay? Not a very big city, but it's decrepit. It's decrepit, and it is decrepit for many reasons. It's covered in graffiti. It has, beautiful cathedrals and monasteries and arabesque architecture, and then it's like that sort of, typical Andalusian mix of the arabesque architecture and then later the European architecture. But it's all been defiled. There's homeless people lying in the streets everywhere. It's become a bit of a student town. Lots of students go there for Erasmus, and they just go there for, for partying and all that sort of thing. But there's also a enriched population. And during a moment of the time that I lived there were all these reports of these same types of people in France attacking couples in Granada, mugging them, armed robbery in the street, groping, picking fights, knockout game type stuff. And on one occasion, one of these violent crimes happened on the route that I used to take to go to work. So I bought a knife and put it on my keychain and kept that in my pocket every time I went to work and had to walk through an area that did not seem to be a no-go zone. It was not that bad. It was just, a normal part of the city. I walked past a monastery that was first built in like the 6th century and then reformed over the years, covered in graffiti, by the way. I walked on a street just next to the main drag, just next to the high street. And yet even there, these things were happening. This isn't the future of Spain. This is the present. And talking about France, it's not just Saint-Denis. It's not just Paris. I used to live in France. I spent a lot of time in the French countryside, but I did live for a while in Bordeaux. And I met a lot of people from Tunisia, a lot of people from Senegal. I worked with them because I worked in a restaurant kitchen doing like grunt work. And a lot of the other people who did the grunt work were Tunisians and Senegalese. There were some Senegalese cooks as well. And they're all fine people, okay? They're all fine. The main area of Bordeaux, from like one of the main city squares, through the high street, the shopping center, it's just full of kebab. And then, as you go out, where I lived in the banlieue. I lived in like the student area that was really far away from the city limits. It's like a 40-minute metro or tram ride into the city. And out there, yeah, it's mostly students, but also it's full of non-French people, living there, full of these same people who were chimping out in Paris last Saturday. So I don't care about if they're high IQ, lovely people, nice people. I got along just fine with these people at work. In fact, our relationship was totally fine, but we became friends, like actual friends. Because at one point we were working a really hard shift, really hard dinner shift. The kitchen was so hot, we're all sweating, we're all exhausted. My job was a runner, so my job was to carry trays of plates up and down. The restaurant had 3 levels, and the kitchen was in the basement, underground. And my job was to carry food up from the kitchen to the waiters above ground, and then they would bring it to the tables. And then I would take the dirty dishes, dirty plates, and run down to the kitchen with them. And my coworkers, my colleagues, were Tunisians, Algerians, and I think there was one French guy who did this job as well. And one night, there was a bottle of Coca-Cola or a bottle of what we were always wanting caffeine. This restaurant mistreated us so much. They wouldn't let us drink any of like the coffee, like the espresso, all that stuff was like, it was above our pay grade. We would just, have to drink water. But anyway, someone had commandeered or pilfered a bottle of Coca-Cola. And one of the Tunisians or whatever asked, whose Coca-Cola is this? Or maybe it was water at this point. I think it might have been water. Because I just said, because they were all asking, like, they were getting grumpy because, if you take a drink of someone's hydration, people get upset. So they were asking, whose is this? Whose is this? And nobody was claiming it, but everyone was really thirsty. So then to like calm everyone down, I just shouted, it's God's water. Okay, so it's for everyone. And these guys, being devout Muslims, they just stopped in their tracks and looked at me, and they offered me their hands in a handshake. It's like, man, that was beautiful. That's so true. Oh man, it was just, and then we bonded over that. Okay. I have no problem rubbing shoulders with people from all over the world. I like genuine diversity. But when you take all the peoples of the world, all the colors of the world, and you mix it up on the same palette, you don't get diversity. You get shit. And I don't care if these people are nice and hardworking and lovely and they just want to come here to study or whatever. If they are now replacing the native population, that is immoral, that is wrong. We are right to oppose it. And I don't need to tell most of you why this is happening, the motivations behind it. This isn't anything new. These designs go back decades, if not centuries. So no, this isn't Spain's future. And it's not a question of just uncontrolled, unchecked immigration, too fast, not enough integration. The whole thing needs to be re-examined. The whole thing needs to be shut down. A moratorium. Like Donald Trump said, we need to put a stop to this until we figure out what the heck is going on. Well, we figured out what's going on. And the people in Saint-Denis on Saturday lived what's going on. All right, I've still got some more stuff to show you. Let's see here. Oh, okay, actually, yep, that's I think that's it for the screenshots and videos. So I just want to talk then for a few moments about 2 things then. I want to share you guys a story of what I went through last night. I was on Instagram, just on my personal Instagram. And there's this guy I follow who's called El Libre Pensador. He's like Sargon of Akkad, but Spanish. Okay. He occasionally will, criticize the woke left. And by the way, like I said earlier about how English terms like based and red pill are entering Spanish vernacular, Italian, French vernacular, woke is also here. So yeah, Libre Pensador. His handle is the free thinker. Yeah, so that's kind of like you can already, it's the fedora tipping skeptic type Sargon type. So he's like the Sargon of Spain. And so like the term woke has come to Spain. If you say it, if you mention, people will know people are starting to know more and more what you're referring to. People are noticing that Netflix is blackwashing all of the gingers from everything. Actually, my girlfriend just discovered, she didn't know that they had made Dumbledore gay. So she just discovered that and was like, what the fuck is this? What? So yeah, they're waking up to this shit as well. But anyway, this guy, El Libre Pensador, he's the type of person who, makes his milquetoast criticisms of the woke, of feminism, of the fact that, the immigration is just, it's illegal. If they just came here legally, if there's just more control, if it was just slower, so there's more time to integrate, that's the kind of person he is. But I follow him, and he made a lengthy post. He's want to do this. He makes these lengthy posts from time to time whenever something big happens. So he made this lengthy post on Instagram documenting, what really happened. The picture is of Maghrebis and sub-Saharans. So, he's not spreading the fake news about, it was just the English fans who did this. And he writes very strict words about how this is a total failure of Macron's France. He also takes the line that this is Spain's future, that what we saw in France on Saturday night was a glimpse into Spain's future if we don't do something. So again, he's wrong there. And anyway, you would assume that his followers are mostly in agreement with him. But something really, really frustrating happened. It was really interesting. So someone responded in the comments and said, this is a failure of multiculturalism. It's not just a failure of Macron's France. It's not just a failure of uncontrolled immigration. This is the failure of the experiment of multicultural, multiracial societies in Europe. And this guy, El Libre Pensador, responded by saying, no, it's not really the problem of multiculturalism in and of itself. Just look at Singapore. This guy loves Singapore because Singapore is like, an economic paradise in his mind. It's total, free market, libertarianism. He's very materialistic in that way, like typical centrist Sargon types. And so he often does cite Singapore as this great example. And he cites it again, and he says, just look at Singapore. Singapore is a multicultural society, And I responded to that, and I said, like, mate, do you really believe that if these people, these Maghrebis and these sub-Saharan Africans, came to our countries just a little bit slower, that we wouldn't still have these problems? The guy is right. This is a failure of multiculturalism. And I got a few likes on that comment, but I was really surprised and annoyed about what happened later. So this guy comes in and responds to me saying, that comment is disgusting, and it's approaching Nazism and racism. You should be ashamed. I know plenty of Africans and Maghrebis who are wonderful people. And that guy I just told to go cry somewhere else. Because if the first thing you're going to come at me with is that, I don't care about your opinion. And I don't even care about those labels anymore. In the past, I might have. I don't anymore. You can call me whatever you want. But I'm not going to respond to such emotional, hormonal, low-level argumentation. So I just told him to go cry somewhere else. But then, and he was a Spaniard, but then I got this guy, this black guy, African guy. He started coming at me with all this stuff, and this was like living it out, man, living out the memes of, the Mutt and Bailey argumentation, the it's not happening, but it is, and it's a good thing, and you deserve it, because all of that happens. all of that happens. This guy comes at me saying, that it's not a failure of multiculturalism. All the great civilizations of the world were multicultural. No, there is no such thing as a pure race. I've never said so either. I never said so in the comments of this guy's Instagram post. But they just have this broken record. They're arguing with some boogeyman in their head, one which would be much easier to argue with, I guess. And he comes in with all this stuff. And I responded with, there's plenty more examples of multicultural, multi-ethnic, multiracial societies that do end in failure, like we're seeing, that end in ethnic cleansing and genocide, something that doesn't usually happen in homogenous societies. And then he listed, the Roman Empire was multicultural. It's like, bruh, every time they cite this stuff, when the Romans marched north to Gaul, it wasn't a fucking school trip to learn about how the Gauls live and learn their language and some recipes. It was invasion. These were violent conflicts, attempts to impose oneself on other people and take their resources and subjugate them. It was conqueror and conquered, subjugator and subjugated. These weren't kumbaya, hey neighbor, fancy seeing you here, come on in. He mentions this black guy that was spurring out at me, mentions the Visigoths coming into the Iberian Peninsula, the Arabs coming into the Iberian Peninsula. Again, invasions. When the Visigoths came into the Iberian Peninsula, it wasn't a school trip. It wasn't to explore the nice monuments and breathe in the Iberian air. When the Arabs came in, again, subjugator and subjugated. And this really pisses me off, because this was 700 years of an Arab occupation of the entire Iberian Peninsula except for the region of Asturias. 700 years. They occupied the southern half of the Italian peninsula as well. And then after that, the Ottomans come along, and Europe has to deal with them for centuries after centuries. This was occupation. But we're supposed to believe that this was the golden age of Spain. Just imagine that. Imagine saying that actually when the British were in India, that was India's fucking golden age. Stop complaining. Go to hell with your attempts to guilt trip the Brits because of the British Empire or whatever. It was the golden age. It was multiculturalism. "700 years it took for the Spaniards to drive out the Arabs, drive out the Moors, and reinstate themselves. And there was plenty of backstabbing and switching sides. El Cid, the great hero of the Reconquista, he switched sides many times. But the overall motivation for the Reconquista was to drive out the foreigner. This wasn't a sing-song, kumbaya, happy days, multicultural society. And the Arabs subjugated, the Moors subjugated the Europeans. They tore down their churches and built on top of them mosques. The most famous monument in Cordoba is still called La Mezquita. That's Spanish for mosque. It was built on the site of a Visigoth church, which they tore down, and built on top of it a mosque. The only reason that it maintains its Arab architecture is because when the Spanish reconquered Andalusia, they decided that these buildings were too beautiful to destroy. And this is true for La Giralda in Sevilla, Arabesque tower. Okay, what the King of Spain, when they were reconquering the peninsula, said, don't tear down these buildings. They're beautiful. Okay, but that's the only reason why they're still standing, because the Europeans decided not to tear them all down. And by the way, talking about La Mezquita, the Arab population of the world, the Muslim population, not of the world, I'm sorry, of Spain, constantly agitate, militate to get this monument back, because it's functioning as a cathedral. It belongs to Spain and it's part of the Catholic Church, but they want it back. And every now and again, they make a big stink about it and how they want it back and how it's imperialism and racism and white supremacy that they don't get it back. These are the serpentine, insidious, bad faith people that we're dealing with. So this guy mentions, this black guy on Instagram is mentioning all these wonderful examples of multiculturalism that were actually invasions. We have this back and forth, and it was ridiculous. And then finally, after a bit of an exchange, eventually he lets it slip that we Europeans don't really have a right to complain because of all of the colonization and invading and everything that we did, right? This was also that he did this simultaneously criticizing me for blaming the collective population of Africa or the Middle East or North Africa, instead of just focusing on the individual bad apples. And in the very next response to me, he brings up this shit. The colonialism of centuries ago. Again, collective guilt for the white race, negativity, blame for the white race, for the European peoples. We exist as a ethnicity, we exist as an identity, and we have to suffer the sins of our ancestors as a collective only when it's negative. But when we try to assert ourselves in the positive, no. When we try to address the bad behavior and the harm caused by the people who are coming into our countries, that we were never asked, there's never been a referendum on this, if we want them to be here. Oh no, then that's blaming the collective. We have to look at the individual. It's infuriating. It's so tiresome. And I told the guy, you want to complain about colonialism and slavery. You seem to forget that Europeans ended slavery, and also we gifted you infrastructure in Africa, every type of infrastructure imaginable, railways, irrigation, buildings with more than one story made of stone, not mud and sticks. But you want to just talk about you want to talk about the colonialism as if that's a bad thing in and of itself, being a colony. Again, he mentions, the Europeans stole all of our resources. I told him, you guys had no idea that those resources existed, and even if you did, you didn't get them, you didn't extract them, and you didn't use them. So what are you complaining about? But one thing that I kept doing, and which I recommend you all do if you ever come into these situations, is don't get distracted. I kept ending every post. The question is not about what happened centuries ago. The question is, why are you defending this type of behavior? Why are you defending this clearly failed experiment? Why are you defending this species of immigration, which is more akin to an invasion? Why are you denying the Europeans the right to be sovereign in their own nations and decide who, how many, and from where they want to live with? And every time he didn't respond. Of course he didn't. It was just more about that when I mentioned the fact that they didn't do anything with those resources. Then again, here comes Egypt. He mentions how great Egypt was. Again, we're so used to this meme that Egypt was created. It was a civilization created, ruled, propagated by sub-Saharan Africans. So I politely informed him that that's not the case. And he got upset because I kept using the term sub-Saharan African. I told him, tell me your favorite sub-Saharan African philosopher. Name him. Your favorite sub-Saharan African artist. Name one. And he got upset about that because he says, well, these terms never even existed, sub-Saharan African. Africa is just Africa. If you're on Africa, you're African. So he wants to culturally appropriate the achievements of Egypt for all of Africa. And then this other guy joined in. This guy was a North African by the look of him and his name. And he starts piling on as well. And he starts mentioning like Fatima al-Fahiri, who's often cited as bringing algebra to Europe. And she's like a white-skinned, European-looking woman. It's like, that's your example of a sub-Saharan African thought figure, thought leader, great contributor. I asked, another one, give me another one, give me another one. And time and again, they were Middle Easterners, they were Egyptian. And then after a little bit of that, I said, guys, we're getting distracted again. Why are we talking about this? We are going back and forth in the comment section of a post recounting a nightmare which took place in France, in Paris, directly because of the failure of multicultural, multi-ethnic society and mass immigration. Stay on point. How are you defending this? And all they had was just the big joke. And then again, like I said, the whole, it's not happening, but it is if you like it, if you're in favor of it, and also it's a good thing, but you deserve it. It was all that sort of thing, because later, these guys that kept mentioning slavery, they kept coming up with slavery and colonialism, because they're saying, well, we Europeans don't have a right to complain, which really pissed me off. And then I told them to fuck off and go to hell. Because if you're denying me the right to self-determination and protection, self-defense, you're denying me the right to an identity, you're denying me the right to a homeland that you would do for no one else, you can go to hell. And I asked, what about the Irish? They never colonized anyone. What did they do? What shit reason are you going to give me to justify what's going on in Ireland and the demographic replacement and mass migration that's going on in Ireland? What about the Scandinavians, the Norwegians, the Swedes? They didn't really colonize anyone. What's your justification for the demographic replacement and mass immigration that's happening there from non-European countries? And the response was shocking. It's just, oh, it's not that bad. It's not, the numbers aren't that great. Don't worry about it. And they come there to study, they come there to work. To which I replied, I don't care what they're coming for. I don't care. And I don't care if they were Americans. I don't care if they were, the meme, the hardworking Hong Kongers. I don't care. Because, by the way, in a lot of European cities, it's not just African populations or Middle Eastern populations. There's plenty of Chinese. There's plenty of the Chinese that often make, like as always, their own little Chinatowns. Okay? None of this is actual diversity. Every major European city looks the same, feels the same, sounds the same. And it doesn't matter if they're nice people, high IQ, hardworking, whatever. It's demographic replacement. It's ethnic cleansing. It's wrong. The British are hardworking, lovely people, high IQ. And yet we have to always hear about how bad they were because they went around the world building infrastructure, bringing inventions and medicines, working really hard to build civilization out of the wilderness. The Spaniards in South America doing the same thing. But because some Arabs come to Europe and, set up a kebab restaurant, oh, well, they're so hardworking, we shouldn't criticize them. They're contributing to our society. Meanwhile, you have no idea if the kebab that you're eating is actually made from the meat of one of the local white girls that they've kidnapped and chopped up and put into the kebab. That actually happened, by the way. So I really have no more time for this stuff. My position is clear. Someone asked me in the comments of another video, but the comment was like deleted automatically by YouTube. I don't know why. They asked me just a question, like not to meant as an insult. I'm genuinely curious. Are you a racist? And so I looked at some of the actual definitions given by the Cambridge Dictionary, the Oxford Dictionary of what a racist is, and they're really strange definitions. And by the definitions they give, no, I would say I'm not. My position is simply that European nations, the European peoples, have the right to a homeland and have the right to exist and decide for themselves with whom. I have no problem with immigration because Europe, the history of Europe is full of it. Most of the immigration, as I said, was actually more like invasion, but there's plenty of examples of cultural exchange and different Europeans of different nationalities living in other European countries. Italians living in France, Italian during the Renaissance, Italian artists going to live and work in France, French going to live and work in Italy, in Spain, etc. We have all the diversity we need. Thank you very much. We already are multicultural, and it's worked out pretty well for the most part. We also have our own problems to deal with. We have our own antisocial populations. We have our own violent populations. I already mentioned at the start of this theory the history of European hooliganism. So we already have our own problems. Why should we import more? And for every one really nice, lovely, hardworking Tunisian, who's to say that there aren't two more or three more who don't give a damn about the country that they're coming into, who just want to use it as a freeloader, who look with hate and scorn at the native population of the country they've come to, and deep down can't wait to take it over. Because when you press these people enough, they always end up saying the same thing. You deserve it. It's not happening unless you're in favor of it, and it is happening. It's a good thing, and you deserve it. It's the same thing every time. Actually, there is one more video I want to show you, talking about what these people act like, what they think, what they say. Again, this guy talks in French. So I'll translate for you what he says. No, not that one. Maybe I didn't get it up. Hold I'll post it now. Anyway, this is a what you're gonna see is some like North African type refugee or migrant, whatever, and he's just filming himself bragging about how he lives off of the backs of European labor. All right. Should be coming up. Oh, now it says I got a slow connection. All right. Anyway, if it loads, I'll share it. But yeah, he's basically sitting there. He's got this shit-eating grin on his face, and he's bragging about like the new earbuds in his ears, thanks to your parents working, your parents' taxes, the new iPhone in his hand, the new shirt that he's bought. He's just laughing about how it's all been paid for on the backs of European work, taxes. He's living off the dole. Now, for every one of him that's making that video, just extrapolate. How many more are like that? But also, in response to that question, is like asking me, are you a racist? No, because I wouldn't also be very happy if the population of Sweden was being demographically replaced by Russians or Mongolians. I wouldn't be happy if the native population of Germany was being demographically replaced by Spaniards. The whole point about enjoying diversity, the whole point about enjoying the rich tapestry of humanity and culture is that it's all a bit different. And that if you go outside your comfort zone and outside the frontiers of your homeland, your village, your city, your country, and you explore, you can learn so much, you can experience so much, you can talk to other people, learn another language, eat eat different food. Ooh, yeah, the food, right? Always with the food. But what these people have in their mind, what's so frustrating, and it's like they don't see it, or they pretend it's a positive, but then of course if you press them, they see it as a punishment. But this thing of like, this is totally normal, this mass migration, this replacement migration, it's totally normal. Nothing to worry about. And it's enriching the world. It's making the world a better place. Lyman says, and then go home. Yeah, exactly. And then you go home. But it's not making the world a better place. Saint-Denis is not better off than it used to be before mass migration, before this mass importation of these people. Our societies are becoming dysfunctional. You can't even go to a football match without fearing for your life. And by the way, Stade de France in Saint-Denis is also the place, it's also the stadium, where in 2015, jihadists exploded bombs while France was playing a match against Germany on the same night that other jihadists went to the Bataclan theater and massacred everyone there. This has happened time and time again. This is a strength? This is an improvement? I really would like for people who still don't understand this to explain to me, how is that possible? I really would like for someone who thinks that this is equivalent to the multicultural Egypt or the multicultural Roman Empire to justify that type of worldview. It's clearly not in any way the same. Not historically, not functionally, not in terms of benefit to the people living in those civilizations. All right, so I think this video is back. I do want to show you this. Okay, here it is.
¿Quieres llamar mi atención? Lo has conseguido. Solo quería decirte que tengo de venir a España y que ¿sabes qué me mantiene? Porque yo vivo en un centro. Exacto, tus padres. El impuesto ese que quitan a los trabajadores de su sueldo me mantiene. El sueldo de tus padres me ha comprado este iPhone. Y quería decirte que seguramente viva mejor que tú. O sea, cállate la boca. ¿Qué dices? No te escucho. Todos los carros que me he comprado con el dinero de tus padres. Nada, eso, que no me deban.
Okay, so I'll just tell you what he's saying here.
¿Quieres llamar mi atención? Lo has conseguido. Solo quería decirte que tengo de venir a España.
Okay, so he's showing off his Spanish identity card. When I call these people passport Europeans, when I call these people passport Spaniards, passport Italians, passport French, this is why. They come here, they get a residency card, they get a passport, they sign some papers, they pluck our nationalities, our identities off the shelf as if it was just some product in a supermarket. This guy now is, I'm just as Spanish as you because I've got a Spanish identity card.
¿Y que sabes que me mantiene? Porque yo vivo en un centro. Exacto, tus padres.
And he's asking, do you know who supports me? Do you know who pays for my life? Exactly. Your parents.
Puesto ese que quitan a los trabajadores de su sueldo me mantiene.
The taxes that are taken from the salaries of the workers goes to me. It sustains me. And look at him, he's happy, thrilled about it, rubbing it in our faces.
El sueldo de tus padres me ha comprado este iPhone.
The taxes of your parents paid for my iPhone.
Y quería decirte que seguramente viva mejor que tú. Saca.
And I want to tell you that I surely live better than you. Can anyone explain to me why we have to accept that in our countries? Can anyone explain to me why the scale of, a few decent ones who just want to open up like a kebab restaurant, as if that's some great contribution, why that tips the scales in favor of mass immigration of these people, and we have to put up with someone like that as well? And how many more people like him are out there, do you think? I don't think that it's a fair trade. Oh, and then the other guy, the in the Instagram comments, the other guy who was coming at me he was the Arab guy, was talking about how, we work under 45-degree heat in the fields. Why don't you go and do that? I told him, I already have done that. Been there, done that. And again, yes, there's plenty of exploitation. And I even said, you're giving me examples. They mentioned they mentioned the assassination of Gaddafi, the invasion of Libya, and how, this is just, you're just paying for the actions of invasions and paternalism, Western paternalism in the third world and all that kind of stuff. It's like, don't talk to me as if I'm in favor of what Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton and Macron did in Libya to Gaddafi. Don't talk to me as if I'm in favor of multinational corporations supporting the influx of third world low-skilled labor that they can exploit by driving down wages, increasing competition for jobs and for decent salaries in the native population. But again, this is talking out of two sides of your mouth. So on one hand, we've got these two guys on Instagram telling me about how they come here and they do such hard work, or they just come here and want to study. That was another thing they kept repeating. How can you say no to someone who's lived in Equatorial Guinea, which is a Spanish colony, and so he sends his son to study in Spain, and they speak Spanish and everything? How can you say no to that? Because I can. The same way that the Japanese can say no to a bunch of Americans who want to come and study over there. If it gets to the point where it's too much and they don't like it, the Japanese have the right to say, no, we don't want this anymore. Go home. Sovereignty, self-determination. That's it. But again, this lying, because as we've seen with this kid, plenty of them come here and don't work. And they obtain iPhones and AirPods thanks to the taxes paid by the workers. In Andalusia and in Italy, if you make, as a millennial, for example, if you make 1,000 euros a month, you're doing well. Understand? That's the economic benefit of globalization, immigration, multiculturalism that millennial Europeans and the generations after have been enjoying and get to look forward to. I've seen in Italy job offers. I think it was for like a biochemist who had to be trilingual, be willing to relocate, and have his own means of transportation. And you know how much that job was offering? 600 euros a month. My cousin studied architecture. Brilliant mind. He, for his like final project, sort of like thesis thing that he had to do to get his whatever certification, whatever, he built this like model of like a leisure center, a fitness thing. But it was brilliant. It wasn't ugly. You could see that he had been inspired by classical architecture, by green open spaces, by nature. He's a guy who loves to go hiking and loves to go in the mountains, and he's very outdoorsy. I don't know, to be honest, I don't even know him that well. I don't get to spend much time with him, and he's a bit of a interesting character, a bit of a introverted character, but he used to be rather extroverted and kind of like an almost like an intimidatingly cool Italian guy. But then he's kind of like toned down and like become kind of a different person. But anyway, he has never been able to get a job as an architect in Italy. He had to fuck off to Switzerland to live and work in Switzerland, because that's the only place where he could get a job and a decent life. The brain drain of Southern Europe in particular, it's real. And for those who stay, they have to compete with not just an increasing population, but their salaries are so low because of the exploitation. Their taxes are so high. And what do their taxes go? To pay for the AirPods and iPhones of some ungrateful brat from Algeria? Enough is enough. And I don't want to have to argue with Spurgs sending me miles-long texts on Instagram because they didn't like my point that this is a failure of multiculturalism, not just illegal immigration. I don't want to have to deal with cucks clutching their pearls and calling me all of the isms and phobes that they can possibly think of. And I'm tired of sugarcoating this. It's not a problem of illegal immigration, unchecked immigration, or a failure of integration. What the hell do they want? Would they want to integrate to? What does the West offer? That we're all just going to be consumers? No wonder these people form their own ghettos and no-go zones and don't integrate. Why would they? Anyway, I think I've said all that I want to say. I think I've showed everything I want to show, but I'll hang around for a few more minutes. Let me just check all the comments here. There's been some good comments on Odyssey. There's been some good comments on YouTube. So if you guys have any questions, I'll hang around for, however long it's necessary. On Odyssey, someone says, we need him on TV saying all this. I don't know if if your comment refers to me on TV saying all this or the Arab kid gloating. Good night, Woodlander. So if you guys have any questions, Celtic says, don't let that brat annoy you. He's probably watching porn on his shiny iPhone. They want to integrate into the social welfare. It's a sad life. Yeah. I mean, I don't... Listen, this is another thing that people will say. And they say this, even it was said to me last night, you're just bitter and blaming your faults on immigration, on people who come from somewhere else. Like, no, I'm not. And stop repeating that like a broken record. My problems are my problems. I know exactly where they come from. I'm not envious of people who live on the dole. I find it pathetic and disgusting. But don't pull my leg either and tell me that I have no reason nor right to complain and to voice my concerns and my objection to this. Me and every other European. Like, the way that these people, the people who were arguing me last night on Instagram, the way that these people try to deny us our right to take our own side, stand up for ourselves, and claim something that everyone else has, and no one has any problem bequeathing to other people. National sovereignty, self-determination, an ethnic identity that belongs to them and isn't just a piece of paper or a product that you can pick and choose. No one has a problem with that for everyone else. But the second a European claims that for himself and his people, suddenly that's an ism and a phobe and a problem and it's just blaming other people for your shortcomings or whatever. Like, fuck off. And again, these people were trying to argue with me in the comment section of a post about, yet again, a crystal clear example of why this is going wrong for everyone involved. For everyone involved. Like I said, the annihilation of Libya and the assassination of Gaddafi ruined Libya and has brought back slave trade. It's not good for them. Globalism is not good for them. Plan Kalergi is not good for them either in the long run. In the long run. Their ethnicity, their bloodlines are also being mixed out of existence in the long run, in the ultimate objective. Lyman says, Pox is right, normies cannot be saved. Find friends. Listen, I don't actually want to come across saying that normies can't be saved. I've mentioned this many times. Normie simply means ignorant in many cases. The people who have their heads in the sand, the people who refuse to change, like that guy with the Ukrainian flag in his bio, after even his own daughters were living through a nightmare, they're not going to change perhaps. But people who are simply, living their lives, going to work, paying their taxes, whatever, and they kind of notice that things aren't as they should be, things aren't what they used to be, this kind of sucks. People who paid attention to what was going on on Saturday night in Paris, they can be saved. I'm never going to give up on the quote unquote normies, because I was a normie at some point in the past, and I'm a normie, quote unquote, if we take that to be a synonym for ignorant, I'm a normie on some things. The point is to keep learning, to keep digging, to take ideas to their logical conclusion. That's why I couldn't be a civic nationalist for more than 5 seconds, because if you just take that worldview to its logical conclusion, it's not good enough. It's just death by slow Chinese torture. It's death by 1,000 cuts. It doesn't address the problem. Here's a question. Pox, what do you think the chances are that mainstream media consumers would understand any of the dissident ideology? What is our ideology, though? I mean, if it's about standing up for our demography, because we don't want to be ethnically cleansed, demographically replaced. I don't know. I think a lot of people will be receptive. I think what we're seeing in some of the Twitter revelations was that so many of the blue checks and leftist politicians and journos, the majority or half of their followers were all fake, were all bots. I wouldn't be surprised if some of the people that were throwing shit at me in those Instagram comments weren't also bots, perhaps. But if I understand correctly, sometimes a bot is actually like a real person who just is sat at a phone looking to do these kind of things, like respond and spread propaganda or whatever. So I think people would be receptive. I've mentioned before in the past that one of the ways to make people receptive is to argue what you are for, argue through from a position of love. And that's what I kept doing with those guys last night, was saying, why are you denying me and my people, my kin, European peoples, the right to have our own say about who we live with and how many and from where? Why are you denigrating our identity and saying that it's a free-for-all, that anyone can just have it? Why are you denying that what happened in Paris on Saturday is a problem? It's not akin to Egypt or Rome or the migrations of 30,000 years ago of hunter-gatherers wandering around a sparsely populated continent. Why can't I take my own side? Galileo's tongue says, I've had somewhere close to zero success getting through to normies about what is going on. You, any tips? I'm kind of like 50-50. One thing that really frustrates me is that I do have success. At the end of a conversation, people will definitely say, yeah, you're right. But then a day later, I see them back on social media, sharing Guardian articles and reposting the same, cultural Marxist talking points and all that kind of stuff, based on whatever, psyop happens to distract them. So that can be frustrating, because I thought you were, coming along. I thought you were waking up. I guess not. In other cases, yeah, I've had quite a lot of success, actually, and people have really come around. like 180 degrees. But yeah, it's about 50-50. All right, let me check on Odyssey if there's anything here. I'm curious about Cáceres. Do you know anything? I would like to go. I've seen pictures. I've heard that it's very beautiful, but I've never been there. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to do a lot of like traveling, obviously, for quite some time, and that's really not who I am. I like to move around and see as much as possible. I haven't been back to Italy in I think like 3 or 4 years because the 2 years of lockdowns and then vax mandates and all that kind of stuff. Actually, I still think that Italy might require a test or a vax to get in. Not sure. And then obviously Spain's pretty much the same, so I haven't been moving around Spain. But I usually do that sort of thing. Like, give me a weekend or a holiday weekend, and I will literally just look at a map and think, where's somewhere I haven't gone before, and how much does it cost to get there? And then I just go, just to see with my own eyes what it's like. Yep. Some JQ comments in the chat. Yeah, I actually even mentioned that in the discussion with the black guy who was getting angry at me. He kept mentioning slavery and all that stuff, and I mentioned, you're not special. Europeans were enslaved too. I told him about the Barbary slave trade. I asked, have you even heard of that? Because he was giving me all these historical examples. He was trying, I have to teach you history. Did you even go to a history class in school? Blah, blah, blah. He was being so arrogant about like his knowledge of history. I was like, okay, history buff, do you know of the Barbary slave trade? Did you know that Europeans were enslaved for centuries too? A slave trade that lasted longer than the transatlantic one. And by the way, did you know the transatlantic slave trade was predominantly a Jewish business enterprise? So can you take the grudge that you've got for the European collective and throw it in the rubbish bin? It's just, these people are just so disingenuous. I like this. Reed Johnson says, our rights are not for them to deny. They're ours to assert and demand. Yes. Yes. I made a video a long time ago called Things That Go Bump in the Night. And it was about how a lot of people are afraid to talk about, violence or what's it really like, what's it going to look like when shit hits the fan, all that stuff. And I was saying, it's already hit the fan. It's already here. The violence is here. The targeting of our women and girls for rape as if it was an invading tribe. That's what invading tribes do. That's already happening. So the shit is already here in many ways. And it's time to start asserting ourselves and say, enough is enough. Start defending ourselves. And I also mentioned in a video I made defending the British people's right to call themselves indigenous. I explained in that video how, yes, you are the indigenous population of those isles, but that is something that you have to claim and assert because it can be taken from you. Especially if the people who are coming in are doing so as antagonists. The Celts who had to fight, the Welsh, for example, who had to fight and resist as the Anglo-Saxons, as the Saxons, I'm sorry, came into the island of Britain, right? You could say that the Welsh, the Celtic Welsh, that was the indigenous population. And then the Saxons came in and they kind of pushed the Welsh to where they live now, more or less. And the Saxons took over. And, 1,000 years later, we say that they are the indigenous population, rightfully so. It's like, I don't know what the statute of limitations is here. I don't know what the expiry date is, but when you've been on the patch of land for like, millennia or so, you're the native population. I don't know of any race or nationality that just sprung up out of the ground and never moved. But in any case, the Welsh lost territory and they lost their claim, in a way, of being the indigenous population. And I say that as someone who is partly Welsh. I'm not saying that as, holding a grudge against Saxons or English people. I'm beyond that. But I'm agreeing with you that you have to stand up for this right. You have to stand up for that claim of saying, this is our land. We don't have anything anywhere else to go. And we simply want to decide who we live with. That's it. Everyone else gets to do this too, or should be able to do this too. It's not immoral. It's not a crime. It's not a sin to say that and to believe that. Okay, another thing I wanted to talk about just before we'll wrap up here. I'm actually going to write, this will be the topic for my next Substack essay. But I did want to talk about it because I also saw some comments earlier, kind of like how the whole sports ball meme, and it's kind of like it's just for normies and consumers and all that kind of stuff. I totally agree that sport has become that, but I think that sport in and of itself is a good thing. I think it's an expression of the Faustian spirit. It's an expression of our biospirit. It's obviously something that goes back to the ancient Greeks, the ancient Romans, even further. In ancient Greece, great athletes, kind of like today, became celebrities and political figures. You could get your foot in the door of politics by being a great athlete. Statues were made of them. I think the highest paid athlete ever in the history of the world, if you adjust for inflation and everything, was a Roman charioteer who ran in the Circus Maximus, like blows Michael Jordan and Muhammad Ali and Cristiano Ronaldo out of the water if you adjust for inflation. He was like a mega billionaire. But yeah, sport has become subverted. It's become a tool for propaganda and subversion and demoralization. And of course, there's always the element of a bit of like bread and circus. It's become a distraction. It is cringe to see fully grown men painting themselves and screaming and crying and getting depressed if their team doesn't win, or being in a state of ecstasy if their team does win. That's a bit ridiculous. But I think, sport, competition, team sport, one of the great things that, the British did do was spread team sport around the world. And I think it's a great way to bond. Patriotic Alternative, for example, likes to go on hikes and that sort of thing. I think it would be a good idea to even organize like a rugby match or a football match. Just get people, anyone who's played a sport understands that the camaraderie that you build in the dressing room and that sort of thing. So I think it's a good idea to foster that. And then, of course, combat sports are a really good idea too. Some self-defense courses if you want to go that route, but even like Muay Thai is a great martial art. It's pretty much all-rounder, except you don't really have much of a ground game if the fight goes to the ground. Well, in Muay Thai, you don't fight on the ground, but like in a real life setting or a UFC MMA setting. But yeah, like that sort of thing. And I know there's lots of people who encourage people to take up a martial art or a self-defense course. Because I worry sometimes that we're like throwing out the baby with the bathwater. It's like with film and music and literature, a lot of it is shit these days, but films, music, and literature still are good in and of themselves. Like, it's nice to watch a good film. It's nice to read a good book. It's nice to listen to good music. I wouldn't say that just because so many films, books, and music nowadays are subversive and full of propaganda and blackwashing and all that kind of thing, that means you shouldn't watch films at all, listen to music at all, read books at all. No, just be more selective about the ones you do read, watch, and listen to. So it's the same with sport, you know. And yeah, it's tough. It's tough to, you know, if I think about what sport was like just even in my childhood, it's totally changed. You know, when I was a kid, I supported an Italian club. It was full of Italian players. The owner was Italian. The manager was Italian. Now it's owned by an American conglomerate. Previously, it was owned. It passed through the hands of a couple of Asians. First, a Thai billionaire, then a Chinese billionaire. The players are from everywhere else. I think there might be 1 or 2 Italians in the starting 11. International football is a joke. It's, you know, I was really happy that Italy won it because we had the most actually representative team of all the big nations. The Italian team was predominantly Italian. I think we had 1 passport player, but teams like France, Belgium, France, obviously, it's unbelievable. England, famously, thank you, diversity, for those 3 missed penalties. The Belgian team, you know, these are all just passport players. Literally, they will, like, their wife will get a passport, so then that gives them the legal pathway to get their passport. Then once they get their passport, they can play for the national team of whatever country's passport they've just obtained. It's a joke. So yeah, I understand this is happening in rugby. Obviously, American sports are just like, let's watch 2 teams full of convicts go at it. And America's like, it's crazy. There's so much sport there. If it's not professional, it's, you know, the college sports, it's just ridiculous. Sport is there all the time. I can definitely see how sport is bread and circus, meant to just distract particularly the masculine population, because it's just constant. But it's a joke. It's like, really, you're gonna invest so much time, energy, and money in watching convicts run around? You know, why don't you pursue some excellence yourself? Why don't you go out and play with your friends that sport? Why don't you go to the gym? You know, felon ball, yeah. So that's just what I wanted to say. I'll expound on this a bit more probably next month, in a few weeks. You know, next month is like tomorrow. In a few weeks when I write that essay. But I see sport as a reflection of a lot of what's going on in society, especially in Europe, especially when it comes to football. And what happened on Saturday was a perfect example of that. How a game of football was the catalyst for the world to see what is going on and how it's not right and it's dysfunctional, that it needs to be addressed, it needs to be stopped. And I also really felt like doing this stream because it needed to be done because of all of the lies coming from French, Spanish, and British mainstream media and the French government itself. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. So I know it's long. I don't usually I've never done a stream this long, actually. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. And like I said, you know, save this video, edit the parts that are most useful, share them. I don't expect this story to go away anytime soon. And I don't want it to go away, because if they're going to keep blaming, especially the English fans, who were mostly the victims, but the Spanish ones as well, like, we need to stand up for our people. They are being blamed when they in fact were the victims. And I don't mean that as like, you know, victim mentality. They were the victims. They were attacked. So if this story starts going out of the limelight, we should bring it back until there are consequences for the delinquent behavior, and until the lies are put right, the wrongs are put right. And if this story stays in the public eye, we need to combat the lies coming from the mainstream and the French state. All right, guys. So thanks very much for joining me. Like I said, I hope you enjoyed it, and I will talk to you all very soon. Good night.